Welcome back to the Bro Show, BroThrow's official YouTube pick show. I am Jake alongside Chad. And Chad, it is week 4 now of the NFL season. Feels like, we're through the first few weeks. We kind of know who these teams are as of now. And now it's time to really pound in and take the spots that we like. And it starts off with a Thursday night game this week. Your Cowboys heading to MetLife Stadium. Giant divisional matchup. Dallas is -5.5. Where do you think your boys fall this week?
Well, I've got them winning. I've got them covering. I liked it a lot better at 4.5, but I think if they win, they're going to win outright. The game sounds like it's calling for a little bit of weather, maybe some rain up there this weekend, or tomorrow rather. And I think, as strange as it sounds, I without their strong running game, I still think this favors the Cowboys. Last week, unfortunately, the Cowboys gave up 150 yards to King Henry, 87 yards to Lamar Jackson on the ground, and they moved the ball at will on the ground. It was pretty disgusting to watch. But the Cowboys didn't have an interior lineman to play the game. They were completely out of their personnel. So a lot of things went wrong in that game. CD didn't play well. He came out in a press conference, said that's on me. I played terrible. But Dak threw for 379 yards against the Ravens secondary, rather. And CD put the ball on the ground in the end zone, and right before potentially a crucial score in the red zone. So there's a lot of things that just kind of fell apart in the game. And this week just really feels like it has to be a bounce back. I think that the team's going to come back. They're going to be motivated. They're sick of people talking about them, which everyone talks about the Cowboys, of course. America's team, what's up? But I think this is a good spot for them to come back. They've been struggling on defense. Like I mentioned, defensive tackle, they don't have a nose that really is even playable. They're either on IR or they're just no good. Maisie hasn't really shown out like we were hoping he would. But they're playing the Giants, and the Giants really only have one weapon. Malik Neighbors, Devin Singletary's been a pretty good running back everywhere he's been. Obviously just the Bills and the Giants, but I think that with the weather, I think that they can scheme, and I think they can beat him by at least a touchdown. But again, Daniel Jones, the Giants versus Dak and the Cowboys. I'm going to take the Cowboys.
Yeah, last week Dallas was in a tough spot. They were facing a Ravens team that was 0-2, and it was really a must-win game for them. And I think Dallas is actually in a similar spot to the Ravens this week. They're 1-2. If they lose this game to the Giants, that's a devastating loss to a team that they definitely have more talent than. And then they fall to 1-3, and now it's an uphill battle to make the playoffs. So I'm looking at Dallas in this game as well. I believe the Giants have 2 of their top corners out for this game, so CeeDee Lamb should just absolutely feast. And if Dallas can really get anything out of Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott in the run game, I think they should be able to take care of business here. So I like the Dallas pick with you. Moving on to a team that is also in a must-win spot, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're headed to Houston, and they're laying 6.5 points, the Texans are. Jaguars played on Monday night, national TV audience against the Bills, and that was a rough game for them. They looked horrible. The Bills absolutely went out, stomped on their faces, spit in their face, and just absolutely destroyed them. And I am really worried about the Jacksonville team moving forward. Trevor Lawrence has not looked good. Their receiving core is not playing up to the level that we thought they would. Brian Thomas has been okay, but Gabe Davis gave them nothing. Christian Kirk is doing all right in, short passes, but we're not really seeing them move the ball down the field. Travis Etienne has struggled. Meanwhile, the Texans have had a very, very strong offense this year, and coming off of a surprising loss against the Vikings, I think they're going to be very motivated and very focused in this interdivisional matchup. So, I know that underdogs have been covering at an exceptionally high rate this year, but I feel like we're going to start seeing that turn a little bit, and some of the favorites are really going to come to play more so. I think the books were a little bit confused early on what every team was like, and now that we have more data and we know what these teams are, I feel okay giving up 6.5 here with the Texans. So I'm going to stick with CJ Stroud. I think that Trevor Lawrence is really going to have to prove himself before I'm willing to bet on the Jaguars right now, because their offense is just in complete shambles.
Yeah, man. The Jags are shit. 0-4. They just really stink. And, I've always liked Doug Peterson. He's got a Super Bowl with the Eagles, but for whatever reason, they just can't get it going. Like you mentioned, Brian Thomas Jr. was an exceptional wide receiver for LSU, and Trevor just can't get him the ball. I mean, one of the worst interceptions of the year was, I can't remember which quarter it was, but he was wide open. It was a third and long, just overthrew him by like, I don't know, 5 feet over the reach of his hands. It was just terrible. I saw a stat, or it was like basically a meme of him and Daniel Jones next to each other. He's basically Daniel Jones, but with long, pretty hair,
Statistically, they've been basically the same throughout their entire careers, which is pretty shocking given that one is a generational quarterback and the other is Daniel Jones.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And they don't seem to have any swag. They don't seem to have any ability to get up. So the Texans, I love the Texans. Like we said earlier this season, they're my pick in their division. Huge bounce back. They got throttled by the Vikings too, or obviously one of the top 5 teams I think in the NFL right now, even with Sam Darnold. But they have an outstanding defense, and they have great coaching. And I would think it would be a little bit closer. Obviously, I picked them last week to upset the Vikings, but that wasn't even close. So minus 6.5, 7 even is a comfortable play here, I think, against this just completely shambled, shitty Jags team.
Well, as we said, the Jags went and faced the Bills last week. Bills are now going to the Ravens this week. This is probably the most exciting, at least the most anticipated matchup of the week for me, Sunday Night Football. Bills at Ravens. Who you got here?
I've got the Bills. I think that I am done betting against Josh Allen this season. Maybe in previous seasons that was okay. Like I mentioned last week, last year the Jags went into Buffalo and they upset the Bills. Clearly that didn't happen this week. From the start, they were just dominant. He moved the ball whenever he wanted. His completion percentage was high. He's on his, Josh Allen's wheels. I mean, he's as good, if not potentially better than Lamar Jackson at times on the ground, just because he's so big. He can see the field so well. I just think he's one of the best quarterbacks that we've seen in a while in the NFL. Now, yeah, of course, he has a lot of turnovers, but he has a ton of touchdowns, both in the air and on the ground. And the Bills just seem to be rolling right now. We thought they'd kind of suffer a little bit, losing both of their middle linebackers, who are key players in the defense. But the Ravens put up a lot of points or a lot of yards on the Cowboys. I mentioned that earlier. But the Cowboys defense the last 2 games has been absolutely atrocious. Everyone's pointing to the management, the coaching, but I think it's really just a personnel problem. They just don't have anybody who's worth starting. And so that's how the Ravens put up over 200 yards on the ground against the Cowboys. So I think that when you combine the Ravens secondary and their defense so far this year, Dak threw 379 yards against them. I think that Josh Allen can easily put up similar numbers and just keep this completely out of reach for the Ravens.
Yeah, this is a really tricky game for me to call. I mean, as you said, Dak put up a huge offensive game last week, but how much of that was because it was garbage time? They were down 20 points and needing to throw to catch back up. I definitely agree with the take about the Bills. I mean, we were on their under preseason for win totals, looking like one of the worst picks of the year, at least from the preseason video. They look like a complete team. No receivers, no problem. No middle linebackers, no problem. They've completely bought in. It seems like the locker room is super, super tight. And they're having fun and they're playing together. And that's kind of like really all you can ask for from a team this early in the season. Baltimore had a huge win last week. That was their first win this season. I think they're going to want to stack on that momentum. I think it's going to be a great competitive game. I think I would lean with the Bills as well, but it should be a really exciting one to watch.
Jake, couple more points. When I was looking at the numbers, the Bills have been, they've rushed for over 100 yards every game this season between Josh and James Cook, which, may not be an outlier for them, but it's important when we talk about this game. And the second point is I really feel like the Ravens gave an A+ effort at Dallas. I think they're going to have a little bit of a hangover, and that was kind of the deciding factor for me here. My numbers actually say to play the Ravens. I'm going to go on the record and say that I'm going to fade those numbers just because I have the faith in the Bills and what Josh Allen's doing right now.
I like it. Well, let's talk about faith. And let's talk about Andy Dalton. We were on him last week saying, got to go with Carolina over the Raiders. We said Bryce Young was horrible. He was that bad. Andy Dalton is a real NFL quarterback. Turns out he is like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL after last game. He had the single best statistical game of any quarterback so far this season in that game against the Raiders. Now he has a revenge game against the Bengals, the team he started for 10 plus years. Bengals are kind of in shambles also. They just lost to Washington on Monday Night Football. They did not allow or did not force a single punt or turnover. Washington scored on every single possession. And now you bring in a guy like Dalton who is locked in. Again, he is not just fighting for a job with the Panthers, but for around the rest of the league. And honestly, after one game, he probably is going to find himself starting somewhere next year, whether it be Carolina or somewhere else. You know, you compare him to Sam Darnold, but these are guys who have really stepped up and have taken their time on the bench and really learned from it. Carolina has Adam Thielen out this game. He got injured on a nice touchdown throw from Dalton last week, but with how well Carolina played last week, their offensive line still manages to be underrated. Again, I said last week, you know, Bryce Young had a top 10 time in the pocket to throw, and the offensive line was amazing against that Raiders pass rush. I don't know if they're going to win this game outright, but I'm perfectly fine taking the +4 with how good Andy Dalton's looked and how much the team has bought in around him and is playing for them. So I like the Panthers here. I'm going to continue to ride them plus the points against the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay away for this game. I don't really like it, but you know, if there's a lean, it may be the Panthers, like you mentioned. Andy Dalton last week, first QB this year to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns combined in the game, which was outstanding. You know, you look at the team, the Panthers before this week, and it just looked like they were going to be the worst team in the NFL. And then one quick change, the red rifle, and boom, here we are. Right, we're talking about them not only covering but potentially beating the Bengals, who appear to be, you know, at least from the offensive perspective, pretty healthy going forward. You know, Jamar Chase got it going. He looked awesome. 2 touchdowns, over 140, 150 yards receiving. The run game looks strong with Chase Brown. Zach Moss also getting some carries, got a touchdown at the end. But this game is just kind of tricky because, you know, the Bengals put up 33 against Washington last week. And you think, okay, their offense is rolling. But Washington's defense just really hasn't been very solid. You know, they held the Giants to 18 points, but the Giants didn't have a kicker, and it was like a first in the NFL where they scored 3 touchdowns and lost the game to a team that only scored 1. So that was just an odd game. But I think the Panthers, yeah, sure, give me the points at home if I'm going to lean somewhere. You know, a 4-point dog in the NFL trending this year as far as bets go seems to be a pretty good play. So.
And speaking of teams that have made a quarterback change, well, I guess that wasn't really a change as Russell Wilson never got the starting job, but Justin Fields of the Pittsburgh Steelers has come out and led the Steelers to a 3-0 start, one of the most surprising teams in the league. I was on them last week against the Chargers. Now, granted, Justin Herbert did get hurt during that game, but still, Pittsburgh has looked very, very good this season on both offense and defense. They travel to the Colts this week, a little road spot for Fields. Where do you see this game going?
This pick seems a little too obvious for me. So I'd say bettors beware, but I'm going to take the Steelers. I just think that Steelers defense completely shut down the Chargers last week. You know, TJ Watt and company introduced rookie Joe Alt to the NFL with 5 sacks and just kind of completely dominated them. And you know, this Colts matchup is for me a one-dimensional game, really. You know, Anthony Richardson has thrown 6 picks this year, and now he's facing this stout Steelers defense. I look at Jonathan Taylor. He's had a pretty good year so far, rushing over 100 yards, both against the Packers and the Bears, 2 solid defenses. You know, but again, the Steelers, they just have so much stout. They're just so stout on defense on that side of the ball. They're only giving up 8.6 points to opposing offenses through 3 weeks. So it's not going to be a high scoring game, which means I like the line where it's at I guess 1.5, 1.5, 2 even. But again, it just seems too obvious. Is this one of those that we go all in on and we get just run over by the NFL? I don't know, but you know, Justin Fields has been this kind of system quarterback the Steelers have been lacking for these last several years. You know, Kenny Pickett wasn't very good. Justin Fields kind of got some shade thrown at him at Chicago. Maybe he didn't have the elements of the coaching that he needed, but he's been pretty great. I mean, he's averaging 72% completion rate so far this year, which is the best in his short career. So I'm just going to try and not overthink this and roll with the Steelers.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, the Steelers' defense has been great so far this season, and I watched a lot of that Colts-Bears game last week, and Anthony Richardson had some highlight plays and some real low-light plays. And it's tough to see going against a defense as sound as the Pittsburgh, as well coached as Pittsburgh, with as many stars as Pittsburgh, that if you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get punished big time. So I agree that the Steelers have been playing very, very sound football. I do think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I like the under here, but I would also ride with Pittsburgh just on how well Fields is playing and also how well the defense has been playing. Last up this week, we have an NFC North matchup. Vikings headed to Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. Maybe a surprising line here. Packers are 2.5-point favorites. And even more surprising, I think I'm leaning with the Packers here. You know, the Vikings have been the most surprising team in the NFL. They've arguably been the best team in the NFL. Sam Darnold looks like he's going to be the comeback player of the year without a doubt. He has an outside chance at MVP if he continues playing this way. Jordan Addison's been injured, no problem. He throws the ball to other guys. But in this matchup here, the line is kind of speaking to me, right? Why are the Vikings dogs in this game? In fact, we know that home field advantage in the NFL is worth 3 points. So the books are saying on a neutral field, the Vikings would only be a half-point favorite, which just seems wrong based on these two teams' quality of play so far this season. You would think that the Vikings would be a much bigger favorite on a neutral site. Malik Willis has played very, very well for Green Bay in relief. I know Jordan Love is rumored to potentially be back, but I don't think it really matters. And in fact, the questionability of who's playing may even go in advantage of Green Bay if the Vikings don't know who to prepare for on defense. Green Bay has one of the best cover corners in the league in Jair Alexander. I'm not saying he's going to completely shut down Justin Jefferson, but if he is locking him up and forcing Darnold to look away and make other throws, I think the Packers' run game has been incredibly solid. Matt LaFleur has been proving to be an excellent play-calling head coach. Again, I keep saying every week, he's from the Shanahan scheme. He loves to run the ball, play action, and has been working very, very well for the Packers. Give me the Packers at home in a spot where I think everybody's going to be on the Vikings.
Yeah, my initial reaction to your pick here was that you're getting a little too cute. But, you know, when you think about Sam Darnold throwing 8 touchdowns through 3 weeks, never done that in his career. Even Bill Belichick was on the Darnold train. He said too many people are sleeping on him. Everybody loves Sam except for the Jets. So that was kind of interesting to listen to. The Vikings have a passing game going. They have the running game going with veteran Aaron Jones. They have the turnover game going. They got 6 turnovers so far this year. But Green Bay leads the league in turnovers with 9. Their defense really hasn't gotten talked about enough, and they've played some pretty outstanding football up to this point. I just think this is going to be one of those. It's going to be a shit or shine for Sam Darnold. You know, he's either going to shine and they're going to win maybe by big, or they're just going to lose outright. So, I mean, it's a close line. It's kind of an odd statement to make, but if Jordan Love plays this week, which it sounds like he's trending to play, it sounds like he's been able to practice this week and it's going to be a game time decision. But if Jordan Love plays, I'm for sure going to take the Packers with you. I think everybody, like you said, is going to be on the Vikings. They've looked so good and they're dogs. So I think this is a good play to try and trick the public here.
Well, if you want to ride with us on the Vikings or any other game we talked about in this video, go to brothrow.com/YouTube to sign up today to place all your bets for this weekend. Chad, anything else you want to talk about before we end this episode of the Bro Show?
You've been pretty strong so far in our NFL picks, right? What's your record?
Yeah, I think it's like 5-3-1, something along those lines.
5-3-1. That's winning. What's my record? We don't have to talk about that. We can just we can move on.
All right. Well, check out our college football video as well. That should be posted after you watch this one. But we will see you guys all in the next one. Good luck on all your bets. Peace.